I want to start with a kind of a check-in. So how are you doing, Natasha? You finished a show. You finished Bourbon at the Border, which you know I loved. You're working on, or you were casting, you had just finished casting Fences. So
Mhm.
just to do a little bit of a check-in, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Actually, I was even before Fences, I was working on, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was working on a one-night show called The Founding Fathers of Black Wall Street that was supposed to take place March 21st. That was written by Sherry Holmes. And then I was also casting for Fences, and we got through the casting process and the announcement, and then we had to have a meeting. So I'm okay. I'm disappointed that we've had to postpone both shows, and I'm a little bit nervous as to what's going to happen, because I think what we all are going to experience is the domino effect of everything having to be postponed. So what's going to happen, in the next couple of months as we get back up and running.
That's what worries me too. And I'm hoping we can get back to the theater. I'm missing the theater. I'm missing people.
Hmm.
Virtual thing is lovely, but it's not the same. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before we get into that, I interviewed Tamara Kassane, who's our current Piedmont laureate.
Hmm.
And that interview will drop hopefully in the next few days. I interviewed several artists, but she compared to what our community is going through now to a grieving process, which I
Hmm.
thought was really interesting. So, would you agree that this is a type of grieving process? And how does this situation compare to people who are navigating grief or loss?
So I do agree that's what we're experiencing. And what a lot of times when we hear grief, we associate that with the loss of a loved one. And a lot of times people, sit back. When I've introduced it to people, the idea that they were grieving something, they were like, whoa. So, there's stages of grief that we go through. And it doesn't necessarily have to be to the loss of a loved one, even though I'm sure all of us theater people, theater is a loved one. And it is a process of our stages are denial and anger and depression. And then you want to bargain, you want to, kind of get answers. And at some point you accept it. And so I think that we're all kind of dealing with that right now. I know personally, um, I was meeting with one of my actors for Fences, and he asked me, and this was, several weeks ago, he's like, how's this going to impact us? We're supposed to go up in May. And my response was, it's not going to impact us. We'll be fine by then. And, I was just totally in denial about the impact that this would have. And as we started to see shows canceled, shows postponed, and started to feel for people that went through 6, 8 weeks of rehearsal, went through tech, and they're gone. They didn't get the chance to perform, or those who only got a chance to perform a couple of shows. You know, it's definitely a grieving process. And, initially, we're in denial, and then, you hit that anger, like, gosh, if one more show gets canceled, and then we hit that depressing stage. And the thing about it is we can teeter-totter through all those phases. We can be angry today and in denial tomorrow, but it's all a process that we go through.
Well, and it's interesting to me. I feel like last week, kind of taking the temperature of what I was seeing on social media and hearing from friends and family, people were cautiously in denial. And then it kind
Mm-hmm.
of quickly moved to either anger or sadness or both
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
people, which is kind of what I was starting to see.
Mm-hmm.
And today, when I logged on, everybody in my friend group was talking about faith. And so it's been really interesting to me to watch this evolution. Is that surprising to you? And I guess as we navigate this week, which the Surgeon General is telling us is going to get really bad. I love how our nation's leaders are
yeah,
prepping us for the
so
worst,
motivating.
motivating us. But I'm wondering what we can expect looking forward as people are navigating this process.
I think we're just going to see more of the same. We're just going to have those days where, yeah, we've accepted that this is our reality. And then there's going to be those days where we're back to just being depressed about it. You know, we want to talk about it, or we're just angry, like, I'm over this. Can we move on? So I think we're just going to continue to see each one another just kind of teeter-totter through the whole process.
And on the days when you're feeling depressed, and I know there were a lot of people posting online I mean, first of all, in the middle of this, a lot of people are getting laid off. They're not, there's no income coming in. So people are getting depressed. How do we, is there a coping strategy to navigate through these different emotions? Does the coping strategy change day to day? And do you have any tips for how we can cope as we're getting through this?
There's no one coping strategy. We're all different. We're all into, you know, different things. And so there's not really one. And it's okay to come up with 50 coping strategies, because it might be today I just want to do puzzles, and it might be tomorrow I just want to talk to a friend virtually or text and cry all day. I might want to go somewhere and, I don't know, rip paper. I want to go somewhere and write. So there's not one coping strategy that that fits. It's not one that fits all type of thing. It's a multitude, and you just have to sit there, whether you're rearranging your house and cleaning out your pantry, which is something I did the other day. I mean, you know, doing things that's been, oh, okay, let me finally do this project, or binge watching. You know, so there's multiple coping strategies. It's just about identifying that you need a coping strategy.
Is it helpful to make lists? Is it helpful to make lists of coping strategies, lists of a prospective schedule every day? Because obviously day to day your mood might change, your list might change, but is it helpful to have some sort of list for people who are list makers, I guess?
Yeah, and again, that's something that's going to depend on the person. So you can't just put, this is going to work for everybody. So yeah, if you like writing lists, write lists. You know, and sometimes you have to try things you've never tried before and be like, oh wow, this is really helpful.
So 2 years ago, my brother died really suddenly and unexpectedly. And it was horrible for my family and I. And a friend of mine who works in hospice, I called her a few days after my brother died and said, what can I expect? How are people going to react? Like, tell me what I can prepare for in the next weeks and months. And what she told me was to expect the unexpected, and that people will act in ways that I could have never imagined. And it was so true. As we've gone through this crisis, I think something that was very surprising to how people react is the amount of toilet paper people seem to be consuming. It's the amount of toilet paper people were buying. For me, it was the amount of bottled water, because I found that kind of funny. I was like, we're not preparing for a hurricane. We're all going to have electricity and water, but people were emptying the shelves. What is that? How do you, I guess, rationalize that behavior? What is that, just part of a control mechanism? What is this? I guess from a social worker perspective, what is that behavior? Explain it to us. Why is everybody stocking up on?
I wish there was an easy answer for that, but the truth of the matter is there isn't. We all respond differently to situations. And so you have people that are going out and buying up all the toilet paper. Well, it could be someone suffering from anxiety, or it could be someone that have that, I don't know, fight or flight response, or I've got to get everything, or it could be the doomsday prepper, or it could be that person that just sees an opportunity to say, oh, let me buy everything up and then charge people triple the price. So, yeah, so it's just not a blanket response as to what's causing people to act this way. I know that a lot of people have been throwing around the term hoarders, but that's not necessarily the case. Because if you're a hoarder, you might need to go out and get a bunch of stuff because it's raining outside, or Tuesday may remind you of something that will trigger that hoarding response. So it's everyone's different reaction to things. And we all have issues and baggage that we carry along with us. And so when you hear about this, we start to hear about this virus and the unknowns, what reaction did that cause out of us? Some people just sat back and said, oh, well, I'm not worried about it. And some people panicked. So it's a really individualized response. But what we see is a group of people responding in a similar fashion. And so we kind of end up lumping them together. But if we were to sit down and talk to each of them individually, we would probably find out something different.
I've asked, in a few interviews I've done, I've asked this question, and I want to ask you this question as well. Is this pandemic a great equalizer, because it's affecting people all ages, all races, all politics? It doesn't seem to care.
Mm-hmm.
Or does it affect people of color and marginalized populations differently?
So that's a very challenging question, because not necessarily want to make it about race. However, if you want to put that into context, and this is general response, is that, yeah, there are some cultural differences. As a person of color, we are used to challenges and adversity. And I think for a while there was rumor going around like, oh, Black people don't get, and it was all a bunch of BS. But I think it was really more or less the response that we're used to challenges. And so it doesn't necessarily have the same type of effect on us as it does others who may not have had to deal with the amount of adversity that we, our ancestors or, relatives have had to face. I think about it as, I can go back to slaves. So that's the easiest way for me to describe it. Whereas they were used to getting the scraps that was left over after master and his family had everything that they had to eat. Then the slaves got the scraps, and they learned to make a way out of what they had and could take little and feed many, and were very creative and good. And so through the years, we as people of color have had to just learn to adapt to situations that we could not control. And so I think there was, and again, general, I think there was less of a panic on our part, because it's just like, okay, well, we're used to having to hunker down and do this. Now, that's not to say that there are not any white counterparts who have not had to deal with any adversity. But we've just had to deal with it for so long on a regular basis. Even, today, just a regular traffic stop, we fear we're going to get killed. So whereas our white counterparts may not necessarily have the same level of fear. So I think there was definitely a more laid back approach, and it's like, okay, we just do what we know to do to survive. And but we also have a generational thing too, because we have a younger generation that has no idea what it's been like to have to experience these types of things, and that maybe not be taking it too serious, to where some have seen or have heard their grandmother or grandfather talk about, well, when this happened, this is what we did. So I just definitely think that there are some differences. But again, general statement.
Of course, but do you think that because we are all going through this together,
Mm-hmm.
together from a distance,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that because we're all going through this kind of collectively,
Mm-hmm.
that it will make people more empathetic to each other? Tim still has a camera on. He's shaking his head no. Well, we'll get to you, Mama Tim.
You know, that would be nice. But if you think about it, leading back to your previous question of equality, and you have those who can afford to have the test, just like that. And you have those that are sitting there suffering, not knowing if they have it or not because they can't afford it, they don't have access to it. So.
And there seems to be a lot of disparity there. I mean, you see all these celebrities getting tested, and then on the news they're talking about how nobody can get tested.
And get it, but yeah. So it's, yeah.
And you've touched on it with this previous question, but I know you are a lover of history. Looking back historically, although for most of us it's our first time facing a pandemic of this proportion, but historically these things have happened throughout history. What can we learn from those historical events of the past that can help us cope going forward?
Other than the fact that they happen, because I really feel like it's a apples to oranges type situation. So when we look at tuberculosis and polio and even H1N1 at the time, compared to now where we have the technology and social media that is so different, I don't know how we can truly compare the two. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really difficult question to ask because there's the differences are just so vast in what we have access to with technology. And yeah, there are just so many differences. I don't know other than it happens and some people survive and some people don't. I think it's a harsh reality, but it's our truth. Because if you go back and you look at the number of people who died from previous type of situations compared to now, and look at where we are technologically now compared to, you know, the mid 1900s and et cetera.
So many of us are part of this rich theater community we have here in the Triangle. And I'm going to speak for myself and not for everybody, but my mental health and well-being is dependent on connecting and collaborating with others around me. I love going to the theater. That is my therapy. That is my outlet. Is there a mind shift that has to occur now for us so that these kind of virtual connections feed our soul in the same way as being together in person? Because it doesn't, I mean, it's wonderful to see your faces. It's wonderful to see him. He and I had a talk the other night on Instagram, but it's not the same.
So, when it comes to that, I'm still in denial phase, I guess, or anger phase. I truly miss my theater family, and virtual hugs, they're cute, but it's just not the same. I can't wait until we can all get together again, and what is that going to be like? I mean, I can probably expect tears because I know whenever I walk into a show, there's going to at least be 5 people I know and there's going to be hugs. And we as a community are so supportive of one another. And this distancing thing, even those that are like introverts, but we still like to go and see theater and be around each other when we want to. It's definitely has taken a toll on us, and hopefully the most that we can do is be there for one another and support each other through this. But it's definitely has taken a toll on all of us. I know I send out random text messages to people now just because I hadn't seen them in a while, to try to maintain some type of connection.
Absolutely. And we're all going to learn how to use all this virtual technology in
Right.
a creative way.
You're going to be a pro, I'm telling you.
I've got a crash course on this. I keep seeing posts on social media about folks using, Shakespeare wrote King Lear during the Black Plague. This is everyone's opportunity to write the next great American novel or paint the next masterpiece. Does a crisis like this, is it a breeding ground for creativity, or does it squash the creative spirit? I mean, I feel like it's kind of double-ended sword here.
I can speak personally. I have, some major projects, and this would be the perfect opportunity for me to sit and write. I am not motivated to write. Every night I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and I'm going to spend some time writing. And then I'm saying the same thing the next night, having written nothing. But then there are those who are thriving off of this and like, okay, this is the best I can do with this situation, so let me go ahead and start writing. So I think it's an individual thing. I personally do not know where my motivation is. I wish it would come back while, I have the time for it to be here. But I'm looking forward, though, for those whose creative juices are flowing. I'm still looking forward to seeing what they have in store for us.
Well, and I think that brings up a good point. I think we have to be kind of kind to ourselves right now and give ourselves permission to grieve, to sit on the couch and watch TV, to binge shows, to eat, to do whatever we need to do to get through this. And I think, I'm going to speak for myself. I'm really hard on myself. So if I'm not productive during any given day, I feel like I've let myself down, or I've let my company down. So can you talk to that a little bit? Because I think it's easy for people to beat themselves up. So we have to be a little kinder to ourselves. As much as we have to be kinder to others, we have to be kind to ourselves too, I think, right now.
We definitely need to show ourselves the same compassion that we should be showing to others. And again, this is something that most of us have never experienced. And so, to sit back and say it's okay to just sit and for me, binge watch documentaries constantly. And then I'm looking up and it's nighttime, but it's okay because we're just in a different environment. And I know I'm not the only one. And it is okay. So to again, I'm someone who is hard on myself as well, but I have really just gotten to the point almost where I'm like, okay, yeah, I didn't do anything today. I didn't write anything today. And maybe I just need this time to just relax. Because us artists, us theater people, we go constantly. And maybe, we can take advantage of this time to either write or just let it be okay and rest. Because we know when we start back up, we're going to start back up.
Yes. So I'm hoping it's okay because people are commenting that awesome. I can share some of these comments
I'd love to hear them.
And I'm not going to name names. I'll just keep it kind of anonymous because I feel, people are opening up, and I love that. But
Yes.
one of our folks said she has the time to write. She starts, and after one sentence, she gets distracted when she thinks
Mm-hmm.
about others and what everybody's going through, and
Mm-hmm.
her heart hurts. And I feel that. I feel that too, and that's from Edith. She said I could share that.
Love Edith. Love
And
her.
I think that's how we all feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, speaking for myself,
Uh-huh.
Edith and I are in it together because my heart hurts as well.
Yeah. We are going through a difficult time, and it makes sense. Oh, I have this time to write, but at the same time, it's okay not to. And it's about accepting the fact that we are in very trying times. We're in the unknown right now because we really don't know. As much as they pretend to tell us, we really don't know what's going to happen from day to day. And so that does weigh on us. That does weigh on us. And so I can too relate to the fact that it's like, okay, and if I was to show you my office with like little pieces of paper where, oh, I have this idea, yeah, never mind. But like you said, we shouldn't be hard on ourselves. We should, and I feel like we should just show ourselves the same type of compassion. We're all in a sense in the same boat with this situation.
Somebody else wrote that his plans for productivity are strong, yet the follow through is dismal, and that sounds similar to what you're saying, Natasha. That
Mm-hmm.
you wake up and you say, "Tomorrow's the day I'm going to be productive," and
Exactly.
then
Yeah. Because it makes sense, because that's, for me, like this unknown thing that we're dealing with is makes us feel dismal, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, because we don't know. It is just a strong unknown that we're facing. I think before all of this, we could at least say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, I'm going to go do, and we don't have that
another one of our, our folks here said he learned before that he learned before this started, or they learned before this started, that busy doesn't necessarily lead to productive, and that's the grace they've given to themselves.
right
And I
now.
love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I know a few years ago I was in a leadership position at my daughter's school, and there
Mm-hmm.
were some challenging people I was
Mm-hmm.
working with. And my friend used to tell me, you've got to handle it with grace and mercy. So I feel like we all need a little grace and mercy right now.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with that. And yeah, sometimes being busy doesn't mean we're being productive.
Mm-mm.
It's just like a filler.
Yeah. Tim said he personally feels so guilty. He feels the need to be doing something, to be responsible. um, and a lot of us, I mean, are responsible for companies, businesses. Tim has NRACT.
Yes.
So that adds a whole new level of responsibility. I can't imagine the businesses that are having to lay off people right now,
Mm-hmm.
because it's heartbreaking.
It is. It is. And I feel for those that have such big responsibilities, such as Tim, and have to make some very, very challenging decisions, because you can't make everyone happy. And so when all is said and done, you have to do what's best for you. And you have to take care of yourself first. With this whole thing is very evident that we have to take care of ourselves first before we worry about what anyone, whether it's in the theater community or a neighbor or what have you. We have to take care of ourselves, because when all is said and done, it's us that we have to deal with, and it's not anyone else that we have to answer to, except for the one up above. But I don't want to get too religious on you.
Okay. Tim's given us the big hallelujah there. So I also feel like this term social distancing is a terrible term. I feel like we need to, I heard on the news, these aren't my words, I'm not this, but I feel like we need to start calling it physical distance, and we can be social. So, you know, I don't think we can socially cut ourselves off.
Yes, because we have technology that is not socially distancing us. It is more of a physical distance that we're looking at. And so social distancing, that is not something that a term that I agree with, but it has become the norm right now.
Oh, I love this. And I'm going to give you total credit for this because you made a really good point here. She said, most of us beat ourselves up with the word should. I should do this, or I should not be doing that. It is self-imposed guilt. Instead, telling ourselves that we can or may do this and that's giving ourselves permission to deal as we need to get through this time or any time. Delete the word should from your vocabulary.
Love it. Love it.
Are there other?
I totally agree.
Are there other? I now open this up to everybody, and you can comment. And Natasha, I'm going to open this up to you. Are there other words we need to delete from our vocabulary?
I think all of those definitive words that put us in that either or situation, I think they would be great to just get rid of. And I know that we use them on a normal basis. And anyone who's on here, I will accept if I say it, that you correct me.
Yeah. I know I attended a workshop in Louisville a few weeks ago. It seems like a few years ago now, but another word that we were saying that should be erased from the language is perfect. None of us have to be perfect during this.
That's period. Just because perfection does not exist at all.
I am going to share, so everybody knows Natasha has shared with me some resources, and I'm going to share with those after this is over. I will make the audio available kind of in podcast format so people who aren't with us can listen, and I will include the links or the names and phone numbers that Natasha's given me for resources, because I'm not a professional, and this is not really intended to be a counseling session. This is just more a ventilating session.
It's just a discussion.
It's just a chat. But Natasha, you do have some good resources. And so would you encourage the people, if they feel they need help right now, seek out professional help, whether it's through their church or through the resources that you've provided me, or through any outlet they can find?
Yeah, I know a lot of my therapist friends are doing the virtual type of therapy, but reach out to the churches, reach out to your pastors and your ministers, and reach out to your friends, because sometimes it's not necessarily you need a professional. You just need somebody to talk to, and you need somebody that's going to listen. I think we also need to be mindful of being advice givers all the time. Sometimes people come to us because they just need to vent, and they just need somebody that's going to listen. And I think that we need to be mindful of that, and just, if you're that person, call me if you need me, but know that, be aware when you're starting to give advice, as opposed to just listening and empathizing. But yes, definitely, if it's to the point where you definitely need professional help, definitely do so. And if you are speaking with a friend and it feels like it's going over your head, please refer them to professional help. even if you are a minister or, you know, someone within the church, just know your limits so that you're not causing more harm than you're helping.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Natasha? And while I'm waiting to see if anybody has anything else they want to share through the comments section, I'm going to tell you that next Monday, the time is to be announced, but I'm guessing it's going to be in the evening. I'm going to be joined by Kevin Turf. And I think it's going to be on Instagram Live. Kevin Turf is the real Kevin T behind Come From Away. So if you saw the musical Come From Away, or you know that show, he is the real Kevin T, who was stuck in Gander for 4 days after 9/11. He's written a book called Channel of Peace, which I love. And he has a lot to say about compassion and empathy. And so I reached out to him and asked him if we could have that discussion in this kind of forum. So next Monday night, keep an eye out on Facebook, and I'll announce exactly what time it's going to be. Scott said, thanks for sharing. Michael said, great job, everyone. So thank you guys for joining us. Ooh, Ray, try to exercise in whatever capacity you can. This is a very stressful time, and it is okay to accept that it is stressful. Thank you. Just want to stay in touch with local theater as a viewer. I agree, Ray. I'm a viewer and theater lover. I'm not an actor or a stage person. Natasha's a really good director, we have found out. And he's got some good projects coming up, which I know are going to happen. So Ray, you're on point with that. I think if we can go for a walk, get outside. What do you think, Natasha?
Whatever we need to do, but that's keeping us safe. And I also want to encourage us to continue to support one another, demonstrate compassion, reach out to one another. Like I said, I'm very random, and I will send someone I haven't talked to in weeks and be like, hey, what you up to? So it's okay to do that at this time. We just need to support each other through it and know if someone's reaching out to you, whether they're just thinking about you or they need to vent or they're just missing you, because we are all missing something right now.
Well, I am missing all of you guys, and I can't wait to
Yes.
see you at the theater hopefully sometime, and I will be giving you big hugs.
Yeah,
I'm a hugger.
Definitely. Yes.
Anyway, well, thank you guys for joining. I'm gonna when we get off, I'll capture the audio of this, and I'll share the links. And thank you everybody for spending time, and thank you, Natasha, for sharing your expertise and wisdom and lovely words.
Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's something not just myself, but we all needed at this time. So thank you so much for coming up with this idea.